I'm Lou Brutus, and man, I've been talking to this guy for longer than either of us would probably care to comment about. Sully Erna of Godsmack. Sully, it's so great to see you.
Hi, it's good to see you too, man.
You know, in this Zoom age, the first thing I do, even though it's probably rude, is check out everything I can in the on the wall behind someone. I see
Uh,
Ray Charles, which is
uh,
awesome.
yeah, I got
Uh,
a, I got a couple of good ones. I think that's maybe Robert Plant back there and Jimmy Page over there. So my whole like vinyl room is set up with all the greatest: Stevie Nicks, Steven Tyler, Etta James, Amy Winehouse. It's just a conglomerate of talent.
you know, it's kind of a basic question, but I don't know that I've ever asked you, out of any of those folks you mentioned or any others, who have you seen live? Like, have you seen Stevie Nicks on stage and got to see her work?
I haven't yet. I've seen a lot of greats, and I have this checklist that I'm trying to get through before they retire or they're no longer with us. But Fleetwood Mac is definitely one of them with Stevie Nicks. Obviously, I never got to see Zeppelin. I was just too young. At least with John Bonham, who was one of my idols, most people know. But yeah, a lot of them I didn't get to see. The Beatles, I didn't get to see Johnny Cash. I didn't get to see Amy. I didn't get to see Etta James because she was way before my time. Some people were going like, "Who the hell is Etta James?" But yeah, but it's the music I grew up with, right? I was born in '68, so that whole '70s era is everything. You know, at that time, all those bands were solidified and really starting to climb. So now as an older guy and coming into my later years, it's like you regress back to the things that paved the way and got you to where you are today and the music you listened to when you were younger.
Do you find that some things that maybe you shied away from for many years because they seemed overly familiar are things that you can listen to again? You mentioned Led Zeppelin. There's a band I played on the radio a million times, so I never went out of my way to listen to them on my own. But now I'm like, man, Houses the Holy. That's a really good record. You know, do you have any stuff like that?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Zeppelin too, because as timeless as they will always be, I go in and out of my Zeppelin phases because we listen to them so much, right? Like decades of listening and detailed listening. And then there's just times where I go, I cannot listen to Led Zeppelin right now. I'm Zeppelined out, and I stay away from a while and I come back to it. I think the record I came back to recently, there's actually two records I came back to recently that I just love, and I play it from front to back, and it reminds me so much of my childhood. One is Peter Frampton Live, and the other one is Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers. I put them on right here on this record player, and I just like sit in this room and I listen to vinyl records. And for some reason, those are two albums that when I hear those songs, it reminds me of vinyl. It reminds me of analog. They're like records that I need to listen to in that format. I don't even think I have them on my iTunes library or something because it's not the same vibe. So yeah.
And also, one of the great hallmarks, I think, of vinyl that people are now rediscovering is when you are listening to a record, it's fun and also very informative to sit there with a big piece of artwork with liner
Mhm.
notes that you
Oh
can
yeah.
read, you know?
Yeah. Hence the reason why this last record that we're putting out has boom, lots of pictures. We have lyrics. There's all kinds of good stuff in there.
Well, let's talk about the record. It's the perfect bridge over to it. Uh, first of all, tell me about writing it because I think you wrote songs and then in hindsight maybe noticed a connection that was not meant to be there at first. Is that the right way to put this?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Is there a thread that goes through the songs?
Oh, yeah. The record. Okay, so we're talking about nostalgia to a certain degree, right? And I'm still an old-fashioned, vintage kind of guy that I like to put out my music the way I remember music growing up. And one of those things that's very important to me is sequencing. And when you listen to a record like Dark Side of the Moon or things like that, they have a flow to it from front to back that if you are one of those avid listeners that wants to hear the entire record and you put from first song to last song, that record not only takes you on a journey, but each song flows from the next. seamlessly, right? So I've done that with all of our records, including my solo stuff. And when I was putting this one together, I was just focusing on the back end of the song going into the intro of the next song and making sure it rolled fluently. And then I started realizing, like, as I was looking at the lyrics to each song, that there was really a story that kind of unfolded here, even though it wasn't built to be a conceptual album. And just like any great Hollywood script, right? It's boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. Now, girl sometimes could mean your career, your passion, your invention, whatever. But that's the basis of every movie in the world, right? And it's the same thing when I was telling the story. It's, you know, the album starts in a very positive, you know, you find your life, you fall in love, you're, you know, whatever it is. And then we go into like the times that we're living in with the second track, which is called Red, White, and Blue. It's just about, you know, witnessing what's going on in this world right now, and, you know, in these times that we live in. You know, and then it eventually gets into the relationship having its challenges and its problems. And then, you know, you learn through the album, one of the tracks, that why the relationship went through these, you know, these trials through a betrayal and things like that. But then, you know, then it turns around, then the arc, we will call it, you know, it turns around, and then there's inspiration again through someone new that you meet, or through realizing that the things that are most important in my life were my band, you know, these guys that I spent 3 decades with. How do you not love them and learn, you know, feel like brothers and a family, and honoring that? So I even put a song on the record called Best of Times that really is just a big thank you to those guys, to say, you know, thank you for tolerating me. Like, when I didn't know how to do this, when I was figuring things out, and for your patience and your loyalty and allowing me to lead you. You know, and then of course, all the way through the end of the record that ends with the title track, Lighting Up the Sky, that is really nothing more than just a reflection of the whole journey. If I could talk to myself as a young version of Sully, what advice would I give that kid now? Would I tell him to go slower and try to enjoy the moments? Or would I have gone as fast as I did? Would I have regrets? And, you know, I don't want to give too much away, but then, you know, as the album finales, I brought back little hints of the beginning from, you know, little things that you'll hear that will remind you of the first album. And so my point is that this record feels very complete because it ends where the first record begins. And, you know, it's for those reasons that, you know, we just feel like maybe we've gotten to that place in our career and our lives where, you know, it's time to honor that, and maybe not put out any more new music.
What was the reaction from the other guys in the band as this stuff started to filter to them? Did they figure out this narrative on their own? Did you point it out? How did it go?
I think it just came up through these conversations, realizing that, like, at what point do we become smart enough to think about where we are in our career, right? Because when we go to see our favorite bands, the Aerosmiths, the Metallicas, the Rushes, whoever it is, I mean, yeah, okay, you got a new record out, that's awesome, we'll listen to it, maybe there's even a song or two you like off of it, but you're going there to see Train Kept a Rollin' and Dream On and Same Old Song and Dance, right? And here we are now, and I say this as humbly as I can, we have 26 top 10 singles, we have 12 number ones. Should we be lucky enough to pull another 2 or 3 off this new record, we're going to be at what, 30 top 10 singles? That means we could play 15 songs a night, do back-to-back nights, and never play the same single twice, let alone the deep cuts. And we started going like, damn, man, at what point do you, you know, at what point do you do good on your own promises for your life? Like, we all have goals, right? As I don't care if you're just a guy that paints houses and drinks Budweiser. We all have these dreams and aspirations. For some people, it may just be, I want a house with a white picket fence and a dog and a pickup truck, right? And then you get it and you go, yeah, but I want a motorcycle too. And then you get that and you go, it'd be good if I had a bigger house. And then you get that and like, now I need 2 dogs. It just never ends, right? And I thought about it one day and I'm like, guys, you know, what we wanted our whole lives was to be in a successful band and do this for a living and have millions of fans and put out great music. And we've done that for 3 decades now. And at what point do we know we've arrived? And we have to honor that promise, because just like Tom Hamilton said a long time ago in an interview, music is everything I want to do with my life, but it's not everything I want to do with my life, right? My whole life, that's all I wanted to do was music, but it really wasn't everything I wanted to do in my life. I have a daughter now that I missed a lot of time with. You know, the moments, the birthdays, the weddings, the first steps, the things that are important that you can't get back. And I don't want people to hear this as this is the end of Godsmack. This is just, we're just closing one chapter in our career, and we're opening up the back half of the sunset years, where we're going to take everything that we've learned, everything that we know, put all the best moments of each show, each tour, each album into one greatest hit show. And so we're not announcing the end of the band. We're not announcing a farewell tour. We're just saying that maybe we've accomplished what we wanted to with creating new music. It's exhausting, you know, it takes a year to write and record and mix and master an album. And, you know, then you're touring for 2 years or so. And it's like, God, you know, it's years and years go by very quickly in our career. And so we just want to be able to say, hey, you know what, man, we've had a really good run. Let's just go enjoy the back half now. Let's put on a great show and celebrate it with the fans. These are the songs that they've chosen to be the best of the best, and we should enjoy the rest of it now. And that's really what this is about.
Why do you suppose, and this is a question I've asked other artists before, but not very many of them. Why do you suppose Godsmack is one of the bands that can drink from that rarefied cup, that can still make compelling music after decades, you know? And again, like you said, there's a lot of great bands that go out there, they do great tours, they have, it's mostly older material. You guys have been able to continue putting out great music. Metallica is another one. You know, the Stones, the Who can still put out an interesting track, but there's not a whole lot of that. What is it in your makeup of the band that you suppose that you've been able to do that? Why?
Well, that's really the $64,000 question, isn't it? It's like, I think, I would like to think that we're grounded enough to know that we're not the genius, you know, we're not the ones that make these decisions sometimes. I really feel that there's something that exists beyond us, right? That helps channel these thoughts and ideas and melodies that pop into your head. Like, where do those come from? Like, we can't really be that much of a genius, right? There's got to be an external genius somewhere that like chose us to get these messages out, get these vibrations out, and that kind of thing. Elizabeth Gilbert, who is the lady that wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love, she did a brilliant TED Talk, and it's called Your Creative Elusive Genius. And she talks about this, how us as artists, we have these pressures that we always trying to be better than the next, you know, than the last record. Every actor is only as good as his last movie, and the pressure that comes when you're writing the new book. And we have to release that from ourselves and understand that some of it's out of our control. And when those moments hit and we get those like flashes of brilliance, you hopefully are somewhere where you can record it and document it, because they go away really quick too. And I think someone said, I can't remember who it was, but every artist has a double album waiting for them in heaven that they lost the ideas for, you know? So I really think a lot of it is that, and I've learned to, it's changed the way I work completely when I think about that. Like, you know, hey, I'm just a dumb mule on earth. You're channeling this stuff through me. I'm doing my best I can to like put this down and deliver it to the world. So I'm going to be here like the donkey that I am every day and do my work. So if you don't show up, and I'll just point to some like random corner in the room thinking there's some magical elf there or something, that, you know, if you don't show up, then, and this sucks, it's your fault too. And so that's kind of the way I look at it.
See, I actually, I think you hit on something else in your answer that is also very important to the longevity and the creative aspect of the band. You guys, I don't know if this is a fair way of saying it, you're a working class band. You guys have always worked your asses off. You've done the shows, you've done the promotion, you've done the meet and greet. You do all the stuff that you need to do to be a successful band and keep it going, because a lot of people just can't hold all that shit together.
It's tough. It really is. And it tries you many times throughout the course of your career. And I know, we're just a speck on that map from all the other artists that experience the same thing. And some of them never even made it through it. Right. So the pressure, the stress of it all, it can be very overwhelming, but it can be very exciting. I really think it's a state of mind. It's how you choose to accept your job every day. You do it in your world. A heart surgeon does it in his world. We do it as musicians and artists. Every aspect of everyone's job has its times where you love what you do and you have a great day, and there's times where it can't get any worse and it just stinks. So you got to set your mind to not let anything kind of drown you in the worst part of it, but just be appreciative that you have something to do and you have a job to go to every day. And that if you're lucky enough to love your job and make a living off of it, then geez, what do we have to really complain about? I mean, we get to see the world and play music for a living. Like, even my worst day is a pretty good day.
That's what I've always said, about our country, which it certainly has tons of problems to it, but man, it's one of the places you can come on earth that you can make a living doing what you like. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean you're going to make it, but you'll get a shot at it. And, I think that's one of the beauties of America. Now, I need you to do something, if you would. Okay. You co-produced this record with Andrew. Before you get into the specifics of producing this record, would you, without getting too deep in the weeds, explain to someone who might not know what a producer does, what a producer does? And I know it changes from producer to producer, project to project, but generally, what does a producer do for a record? And then what did you specifically do with Andrew this time around?
Okay, so sometimes I'm not even sure what a producer does anymore, what they're supposed to do, but I'm pretty sure that when you produce an album, if you're a producer working with a band and your job is to produce that album, part of it is that you help them with arrangements. If you feel like that chorus is a little bit too long, I think you should chop it in half and get to the point quicker. All the way down to sonically how the record sounds, engineering it, like making a decision, even if you're not the engineer, turning the knobs. I don't know how to do that stuff. I've been doing this my whole life, and I still don't sit behind the desk. And I can do it to a certain degree because I've just done it for so long, but I don't know the details of that experience to get, I want the kick drum to sound like this, or I want the vocal to delay like that. I let them do it, but I'm there to guide them, and I'm there to verbally tell them what I'm looking for and how I want the album to sonically sound. So there's really a couple of different hats a producer wears, and one is the arrangement of the music, and the other one is the sound of the record.
So with having a co-producer with you, is it just the two of you sort of putting your heads together and hopefully coming up with a happy medium between the two?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've worked with Andrew long enough, and he was the guy that produced our first two albums, but he knows me, and I've always got my hands in everything, and nothing goes out without with the Godsmack stamp of approval without me stamping it off. So I chose Andrew because this whole concept, when it really became about, oh my God, this might be the last one ever, and it became emotional, I wanted to bring in I want to end this where it began, with the people that helped us create this in the first place and sent us on our way for success. And that's Andrew Murdoch, along with Dave Fortman. Dave mixed the album. So as far as co-producing, I produced this record. I brought Andrew in to co-produce with me because I wanted him to be a part of this journey. I wanted to end this where it began. I felt like it was the right thing to do. And I have an immense amount of respect for him as a producer and an engineer. So it made sense. Same thing with Dave Fortman. He produced our Horsepower and Oracle album. And so I obviously couldn't have three producers. So I just brought him in because he's great with sonically making a record sound good. And I worked with him on mixing. Ted Jensen mastering the record from Sterling Sound. He's done all of our albums, even bringing back, our original management company and a lot of our original crew members on tour. I want this to feel like the family is back together, and as many originals are here with me as we conclude this chapter in our lives.
You know what? I expected an answer somewhat like that, but I didn't realize how.
But I said it better, right?
You said it better. It also cut a lot deeper, and there was a lot more to it. Well, you're laughing at me, and what I said was funny, I guess. But yeah, no, I didn't realize that it went that deep, and there were so many of the the old timers involved in it. Let's talk about putting a set together, and I'd like to first maybe point out a few standout tracks from the record, and then how you're going to work them into a set. Surrender is the obvious place to start. Any insight you can give me into the song?
Well, again, it's all part of one long story, and Surrender is the second track on the record. No, the third track on the record.
I remember. I heard.
Yeah,
you
and I is first, Red, White, and Blue, and then Surrender.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as I said, boy meets girl, right? And then your life does whatever. We talk about the times we live in, all that. By the time we get to Surrender, is about the relationship starting to see challenges and complications, and being to the place in your life where you've gone through this so many times, you're just tired, you're exhausted, and you're waving the flag to go, look it, I have no more fight left in me. Like, there's no reason to fight anymore. Like, why can't we just honor each other for who we were in our lives at that time and move on, right? There doesn't have to be knives thrown at each other anymore and all that stuff. So that was really, that's the part of the story where relationship starts to find its difficulties, and us just kind of wanting to surrender to those things because we've been through them so many times.
How do you work those into a set now?
Work the songs?
Yes. Yeah. The new songs. How do you work the new songs into a set?
Well, we very carefully will select which ones we feel are the strongest from the first impression. I want to make sure that we choose songs that, whether you've heard it 100 times or for the first times, it grabs your attention from the beginning. I think that'll be the first part of selecting the songs. And I think there's a lot of them on this record, actually, and I'm very confident that people will enjoy this whole album. So it's a good question, but yeah, we're going to have to think about what belongs in the set and how it flows coming in and out of some of the older stuff.
And granted, you talked about how the live sets overall on the way are going to celebrate, the many albums and huge songs and things that you guys have accomplished. Is there any sort of temptation, though, to maybe at least do a one-off and present all of these songs in order, all of the new tunes?
That's a good question too. I don't know, Brutus. It's like, I feel that we have to build the best show that we can build. And so many times we've tried to get creative in those ways. And what happens is you get a lot of whiplash from the fans, and they're like, why didn't you play I Stand Alone? Why didn't you play Crying Like a Bitch? Why didn't you play Keep Away? It's like you can't win either way. You do your best, and you can only be on stage for so long, because I don't care who you are. Even the Foo Fighters, like, if you're doing a 3-hour show, you're yawning by 2 hours into it. Like, it's tough to get through a lot. I love the Foo Fighters. I love Metallica, but sometimes it's just, I can't do it. I can't sit there, even as your ultimate fan, to watch you for 2.5 hours. So we're trying to be mindful of all these things and make sure that, we're giving everybody what they need, but it's okay to leave them wanting just a little bit more sometimes, so they come back for the next round. Because again, we have a lot of material, a lot of singles, and you may come to see the band for the second time and may get a whole different experience from different song choices. So, and it helps us too, by the way. Sometimes we have to switch them up as we go through a tour, because we're just, you get bored sometimes doing the same set over and over and over again. Keeps us fresh.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see it. And one of the spots I know I'm going to see you, and a place you guys have done A couple of the best performances I've ever caught you doing was Rockfest in Cadott, Wisconsin. Any particular memories of that, and any particular thing you're looking forward to for that in July?
Yeah, some of those Midwestern kind of shows, they're always fun because it's just the people come out of the woods everywhere and it just creates a vibe. Like it's such a fun experience to see so many people come together. And I, there's so many good memories of so many shows that we've done and that we do for different reasons. But as long as the energy is there between the exchange of the band and the audience, then all the shows become really fun. The ones we remember the most and the ones that stink, the ones that you just go like, oh man, that audience was just really boring tonight, or they were tired of something. And those ones you tend to remember more than the great ones, because most of them are really consistent now. So and plus we love what we do, right? So you get lost in the music, and there's a lot of that going on. So sometimes we don't even know if our manager comes back and is like, did you hear the crowd? I'm like, I missed the whole thing. I was so in the show that I didn't pay
Tunnel
attention
vision.
every moment like someone else did. Yeah.
Well, listen, Sully, you know how much I've enjoyed speaking to you these many years, and hopefully we'll catch up again a little bit later this year when you hit the road. But congratulations. It's an amazing record, even by Godsmack standards, which are always the very highest levels in my book. And I'm happy to talk to you.
Thank you. Yeah, this one's an emotional one for us. So I hope people feel it when they grab this record. And I feel very confident that they're going to really love this record front to back. So thanks for being there for us all these years. And like I said, this isn't the end. It's just a new chapter. So we'll be seeing you on the road.